What's up, everybody? It's your boy Devon Taylor here, aka Deezus, and this is my podcast, Deezus Take the Reel. No, this is not a religious podcast. It's a podcast where we're talking movies, we're talking life, we're talking all sorts of weird shit, and for the third week in a row, we're talking all sorts of creepy shit. This is the final horror episode in my random horror block of episodes, because you know what? This is my show, and I can do whatever I want. And I have a very special guest, as always, to talk some more awesome horror movies. I have one of my very good friends, very good friends on the internet at least, because, we still haven't even met, in person, but, you know how internet friends work. It is Mr. Nolan Dean. How you doing today, bud?
I'm great, man. Thank you so much for having me on. Anyone who knows, I've been wanting to work with you for ages, and you were on my show last week, and now I'm on your show. The circle has been complete.
I know, and it's all my fault. I will totally, admit that it's all me, because I just have such a weird and crazy schedule. So it's we were going to record one day, and I had to cancel last minute, and then it took a minute to get your show, and then, yeah. So, but like I said, it is, 100% all on me.
I'll take some of the blame too. I am Scottish. We're used to that.
Yeah, and it is also, kind of odd, working with the time zones and everything, because you're definitely the biggest, time zone difference that I've worked with on the show. But
I don't like living here either.
What? You don't like Scotland? Isn't it, gorgeous over there? I mean, I've never been, but...
Oh, no, I live in Cyprus. I'm just from Scotland.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right. Well, guys, Nolan Dean is he's just like me. He's an aspiring and up-and-coming creator and writer, and he's got all sorts of cool stuff that I'll let him tell you about here in a sec, because the opening segment of the show, of course, is Who the Hell Are You? So, Nolan Dean, from your mouth, your words, go ahead and tell the people who you are and the kind of stuff you do.
Well, like you said, I'm a writer and up-and-coming podcaster as well. I run a show called Movies and Me, where each week we get a new guest to come on and talk about a movie that has a personal connection to them. I've had Devon on the show. I've had lots of great guests as well. Just booked a really great one yesterday. Coy Jandreau is going to be coming on to talk Spider-Man in film, which I'm very excited for. Also, I dabble a bit in writing. I hang out with the Odd Shaped Panel guys as well, and they often call me their version of Max Landis. And I've met Max Landis quite a few times. He's a really dope guy. And I've written scripts, I've written books. I've got a show, Midnight Myths, which is a horror anthology series coming out. And I'm actually working on a new book right now. I've got the blurb loaded up if you want me to go ahead with that. This might just blow your mind, but
please,
is that okay?
Please blow my mind. I want you to blow my mind. Blow my mind all over the place.
Very well. So this is a book I'm writing currently called The Moonflower Child, which is sort of a middle grade fantasy story, like Narnia or Harry Potter. And the blurb is as follows. 12-year-old Millie Robertson has her head in the clouds. Nothing in her 1980s London neighborhood excites her, not even her crush next door. Dad's too busy to spend time with her, Mum's barely keeping the family together. Worst of all, her older brother Mike constantly teases her for her obsession with her favorite book, The Adventures of Moonflower Jones. One night, Millie is whisked away to the kingdom of Vicario Valley by Princess Jade, and her fantasy is now reality. Werewolves roam the woods, dragons rule the skies, and best of all, she's granted one wish. Millie only wants one thing, to be just like her hero, Moonflower Jones. Her wish is granted, and Moonflower is brought to life, and Millie tries to learn all she can to become the hero she always dreamed of being. But when Moonflower Jones discovers that she's merely a work of fiction, she is determined to change her own destiny, even if it means killing and harvesting Princess Jade's magic for herself. Unless Millie can stop her.
Oh my goodness. For real, that's dope. One, love the title already. Two, it definitely goes with what we're going to be talking about today, because it's a very meta concept, and we are talking meta horror films. I don't even know if I said that at the beginning. We're talking meta horror films today, so that makes complete sense, especially for, the movie that you picked. And I think it also kind of represents, because I know your movie tastes pretty well, so I mean, that sounds pretty much right up your alley. I love it.
Oh, it's been great doing that, and I'm always posting about it on Twitter. Usually I'll share little snippets of what Moonflower Jones is like, because she's one of the coolest villain ideas I've ever come up with.
I mean, it sounds awesome, and I mean, I love that. Like, we're very similar in that aspect. Like, we have so many ideas going on, so many things that we're working on, and just so many things you want to share, you know. And I love that you understand that. I think you understand that the most out of like the people I interact with. You and Morgan Robinson too, because he's working on a whole bunch of stuff as well. But yeah,
like the trio.
Yeah, like, I mean, we're just all three of us, we're grinding it out, coming up with all these crazy ideas. Did I ever get to tell you my movie idea of the script that I'm working on right now?
Is that the one that you pitched on Pitch It Movie Podcast, or a different one?
No, this is like my baby, like the one on Pitch It Movie Podcast was definitely awesome. Like, I pretty much got my wishes on that one, doing a Edgar Wright directed, Max Landis written movie. But no, this is like my personal one, so I don't know if I've even told you about it.
Blow my mind, buddy.
Okay, so the premise of this movie is hold on one sec. I'm actually going to grab my notes for this.
I'll just pretend I have like a cigar and I'm drinking scotch.
Oh yeah, we're getting legit on this one, guys. So I have a couple working titles. I don't have my official title yet. I have a couple. So here, I'll give you 3 potential titles, and then at the end, once I like explain it, tell me which one you think would be the best title. Make sense?
Okay, go for
it.
And
I'll post this to the people on Twitter too. Whenever I post this episode, I'll post a poll, and I'll let you guys vote on which title you think is the best one. I have 6 of them, but I'm gonna just read 3. So one of them is Drive Slow. That's the very first one. Then I have Sleep Behind the Wheel. And then I have Sleep with One Eye Open. Okay?
All right.
Actually, I'm going to throw out a 4th one. Twitter allows 4 poll options. 4th one is Sleep Driving. Okay?
All right, let's go for it, man.
So the movie follows Jackie Quinn, a struggling upcoming stand-up comedian in L.A. He's been in L.A. for about 3.5 years, and the comedy is not going the way he wanted. He is always hustling for money with various odd jobs and different things that he does on top of still trying to make it as a comedian. He is struggling with his ex, who is also a stand-up comedian as well, who is kind of competing with him now that they're not together anymore. And he's also trying to shed. He used to be a former drug dealer with his best friend. His best friend was originally his supplier that became his best friend, a la Pineapple Express a little bit. And then, so he's trying to get away from all that, but he's also trying to make it. He's trying to make money, do all this stuff. So he takes up driving on the side, like Uber or Lyft or whatever. Takes that up on the side, starts doing that for some extra cash. Well, his reputation is kind of known around town, so people start asking him to do special driving tasks for them. Not a getaway driver, but just kind of, he's like, transporting things for people or specific, important, crime people or stuff like that, So he's transporting them for extra money on the side. He has some very strict rules about it because he doesn't want to get in trouble again with the law. So he's very thorough. He has very strict rules. He doesn't want to interact with the people. He doesn't want to know what he's driving. He just gets the location and puts the price up, and he drives. That's all he does. So one of his clients is very alluring. He's this very charismatic guy. They become best friends. He brings Jackie into gigs and stuff and starts getting him bigger gigs, brings him to parties. He's partying, doing drugs, meeting girls, all this stuff. Well, Jackie finds out that his new friend is actually an Oopier. And if you don't know what that is a specific type of vampire. So he is caught up in this underbelly now of drugs and women, and he's getting everything he wants because he's getting the stand-up gigs, he's making money, and so he's torn because he told himself he would not get involved with his clients, and he decides he wants out, but of course his new friend is not happy about that. And then it goes from there. So we got shades of Drive, I say shades of Dope, you got vampires in there, and then there was another one that like that I'm like really pulling my inspiration from, but that's about the vibe of what this movie will be like. So it'll be very quick-witted dialogue. It's very hip. Music will be very prominent in it because I kind of want the opening scene to pretty much be a music video essentially. So that's what I'm working with right now.
Mine's successfully blown, buddy. Like, I want to watch that right now. It's like you managed to cross Drive with Nightcrawler, Baby Driver, and a bit of the Lost Boys thrown in there.
And a little Lost
really
Boys. And I say
really
a little
fun.
And a little Point Break too, because you kind of got the, like you said, he's adamant about it at first, and he's apprehensive, but then he's knows he shouldn't be friends with him, but at the same time he's into it and he's into this world. So I kind of like that a little bit as well. So yeah, I don't know, and it'll definitely be but it'll be very brutal. It'll be very bloody, all sorts of killing. Oh, that was the other main point was, so these murders are popping up and he knows that his friend is responsible because he's killing people to drink their blood and all that good shit. And so now he's also torn about that. Like, okay, so, I know this information. I could, stop all these things going on, but he's also torn because, he's kind of selfish and in it for his own reasons. So I don't know. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Do you have an idea for a main star?
I don't yet. I don't. It'd have to be, I don't know. It's tough. Let me think about that one. I was
imagining Paul Rudd when you were describing that.
Well, I want it to be somebody a little bit younger. I want it to be somebody in their mid 20s, like maybe an Ezra Miller. I'd like to see in this role, maybe, or an Ezra Miller, or of course my boy Shia LaBeouf. I think Shia LaBeouf could pull it off. So I don't know.
Just do it, man. Just do it.
Work in progress. That one is. I'm taking my time with it, because I really love the idea and I'm super excited about it. So I'm taking my time. I have some other side projects too, but we're getting sidetracked here with side projects. Get to the main project here, this show, and we're gonna get into our game, because it would not be Deezus Take the Reel without a game that I came up with. Actually, I came up with this one about an hour ago, so I had a little bit more time to come up with this one, but nonetheless, still very last minute. You ready for this?
I'm ready, buddy.
I know you are. That was even what you said today. You're like, man, I can't wait to see what game you have worked out. And I'm like, oh, I'll make sure it's a good one. So it's kind of a variation on a game that exists already. Last Man Standing, the game that Doug Benson plays?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay, so pretty much how that game works is you have a topic, and I guess it still kind of works the same way. So you'll have a topic. It's usually either it's an actor or a director or something like that, and you have to name as many movies back and forth, but you only have 5 seconds to name one. And then if you stall or you can't name a movie of this particular thing, then you lose. It's better when there's more people, but I think me and you will be able to go at this for a minute.
All right.
So the variation on it is, this is called the Last Cliché Standing. So we're talking meta horror movies and stuff, and in Scream they mention all the rules and all the good, all the horror tropes and stuff. And I hate saying cliche because I think if you use a cliche effectively enough, it doesn't matter, and I wouldn't consider it a cliche anymore. So
I couldn't agree more.
So I do hate the word cliche. But they do come up especially in horror movies, because horror movies do kind of across the board have the most universal tropes to their genre, I'd say. We all know them, so that's what we're gonna do. We're doing the Last Cliché Standing. So me and Nolan, we are both big horror fans, and we are just gonna name as many of the popular horror tropes as we can until one of us can't think of any.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, let's go ahead and get into it. You are the guest. I will give you the honor. Go ahead and go first.
The power goes out.
I will be right back, but then he is never back.
The phone rings in the middle of the night, and you don't know who it is.
Let's split up.
Let's go out the front door, but it's locked.
Let's go downstairs.
The killer is really someone who was close to me.
The virgin survives.
The virgin dies.
The main protagonist is female.
The killer is male.
The killer is usually is a hulking person. I just noticed they are all very tall.
The killer has a tragic backstory.
The killer has a signature weapon.
The signature weapon usually fails on them near the third act.
They're having sex and they're gonna die.
Someone says a badass line before killing the killer.
The killer's music is heavy on piano. Does that count?
Jump
I don't know.
scares.
That's stretching a bit.
It does count, yeah.
Okay. Well, jump scares definitely counts. I was literally watching Scream today. I should have no more than these. That's probably 5 seconds. That's definitely 5 seconds. Nolan, you win that one, because I also think my last one's a bit of a stretch. So, you are definitely the winner on this one.
You could have said it's a jump scare,
which ones
but it
did we
turns out to be
miss?
your friend, and that's what we call a false scare, and I hate those.
Yeah. What are some other ones we missed? I mean, we covered a good amount of them.
One that I always notice is that it usually opens with someone getting killed. I mean, Get Out did that pretty well, but that's usually one of the first things. Someone dies in the beginning scene.
Yeah. I mean, wait until we talk about the movies here. 'Cause, I mean, Scream has one of the best cold open scenes ever. I love a good cold open in a horror movie. Like, you want to know a movie that pissed me off recently that had an amazing cold open that turned out to not be that good?
What's that?
That would be The Bye-Bye Man. Did you check that one out?
I said bye-bye to that, man, and I didn't see it.
You didn't... Bye-Bye Man was a frustrating movie because it could have been really good. It definitely suffered from being PG-13, but that's beside the point. I already covered The Bye-Bye Man on this podcast. So, but The Bye-Bye Man had this amazing cold open, though. Like, it is really, really good. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, okay, this movie's going to be pretty dope. And then it never lived up to the cold open, and it was so frustrating.
Yeah, I have one in mind like that as well, where the cold open, the cold open in this one wasn't even that good, but that was Rings.
Oh, the Rings is, that's the most recent one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not good.
Skip
and
that
I love
one.
The Ring so much, and just seeing that destroyed with those horrible characters. Like, look at the first Ring, right? She's a journalist who wants to find out about this thing because her niece died, and she's going after a story. In this one, my boyfriend hasn't called me in 5 minutes. I'm going to go to his college and find out this cult of Samara worshippers.
Oh, goodness. Is that really what that movie's about? Oh, God.
Yep.
I might have to watch it because that sounds absolutely ridiculous. But, yeah, no, I skipped that one. But, yeah, a good cold open can really make or break a movie. But before we actually get into the movie portion, just gotta do some housekeeping, of course, guys. One, make sure you guys are checking out the Patreon account, patreon.com/Deezus Take the Reel. $1 a month can help make the show bigger and better. I can make longer episodes, more episodes. Deezus and T-Money can happen more often. All wonderful things if you join the Patreon campaign, and you will, of course, get some perks like monthly Skype sessions or some bonus material. You'll get your, some Patreon exclusive recordings. So check out the Patreon page, guys, patreon.com/Deezus Take the Reel. And of course, guys, make sure you're doing those iTunes reviews, 5-star reviews. I love those. I love reading them on Deezus and T-Money. If you give a 5-star review, and I will read them, I'll give you a shout out on Twitter, of course, as well. I love getting those iTunes reviews, but not only that, not only do I love hearing good things about myself, it will help spread the show so more people can find the show, and Deezus Take the Reel can get into more people's ear holes. So definitely get those reviews out, guys. And the last bit of housekeeping is last week I got to go on the Rob and Slim Show. It's one of my favorite podcasts I listen to. Those guys are so much fucking fun. And we had a crazy ass time because, I mean, if there's a show that gets weirder than Deezus Take the Reel, it's probably the Rob and Slim Show. So here's a little promo for them. Definitely go and check out their podcast.
Hey, I'm Rob.
And I'm Slim.
And we do things like eat hot dog smoothies and have our interns shit in adult diapers.
Yakov Spiridov loves us. He raves about us on Twitter.
We do a lot of great interviews with musicians, actors, and comedians.
We've also gotten a bunch of death threats and lawsuit threats.
If any of these things intrigue you, then check us out. Find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube.
Rob and Slim, internet radio at its finest. Pew, 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 pew.
I fucking love those guys. Even their promo is fantastic. We had so much fucking fun last week, so definitely check out the Rob and Slim Show.
That was a really... I wasn't expecting that explosion.
You should definitely check out their show. It's they do it live too, and their show is like 3 hours long, and that sounds like it's like a lot, but trust me, it is so much fun. It's kind of like Schmoes, but less movies and more cuss words and weirdness.
My favorite things in life.
Yes. And speaking of our favorite things in life, me and Nolan Dean, we're both big horror fans. This is the third horror episode in a row, as I just came from the Overlook Film Festival, which was just fucking bananas. Like, guys, I literally got to watch movies in the Overlook, well, not in the Overlook Hotel, but the recreated Overlook Hotel. It was creepy. We did so many games. Definitely check out my big Deezus Take the Reel Overlook Film Festival coverage special. God, never mind. That was way too long. But yeah, go ahead and check it out, guys. It was super fucking crazy. I had so much fun. Met so many cool people. It was amazing. Nolan, I wish you were there. You would have loved it.
Did you bash anyone's brains in?
Unfortunately not. I was trying to make it out of Oregon legally. So no brains were bashed. Or not that you know of, at least. So we are go ahead and get into this week's topic. Is we are talking some meta horror movies, because I asked Nolan what movie he wanted to do, and Scream is the movie he chose. Nolan, why'd you pick this movie first off?
Scream is a lot of things. It's a great coming of age story, and it's a great slasher movie, and it's a great horror movie. I mean, there's everything in this movie is just stuff that I love seeing in movies. You want great characters, you want a really fun time, you want great scares, you want a really great villain, and a really great protagonist. Like, I know a lot of people talk about like Ellen Ripley and Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween for horror protagonists. I don't feel enough people talk about Sidney Prescott, because not only is she kicking ass, she's a very well-developed character, and Scream is my favorite horror movie of all time. And I actually mentioned this when I was on Morgan's podcast, Horror House. I find Ghostface to be the scariest killer in horror, because, you get like a lot of killers like Chucky and Freddy and Jason, but whilst they are scary, you can suspend your disbelief a bit. Ghostface could be a guy living on your street. That's just so frightening to me, and it makes the movie even more fun to watch. And he's not supernatural. He's not like a crazy, overpowered guy. He's just a guy wearing a costume and a Bowie knife, and that to me was just more frightening than someone who would come into my dreams and kill me.
Yeah, I definitely echo those sentiments. A couple weeks ago, on the episode that we did with Tim Miller, we were talking underrated slashers, and I would definitely put Ghostface in there. You have everybody knows the Trinity. Everybody knows, you got Freddy Krueger, you got Michael Myers, you got Jason. That's like the main Trinity, and then, there's layers underneath of, other popular slashers. We talked Leatherface and Candyman as two very underrated slashers, and I would definitely put Ghostface in that category, because like you said, it could be anybody. It could be somebody living next door, or in the case of the movie, somebody you go to high school with, or spoilers for a 20-year-old movie, your boyfriend and his best friend. So you never fucking know. And like you said, like, Ghostface gets his ass kicked a lot in this movie, because he is human. He's not like, overpowered. So yeah, Ghostface definitely does not get the recognition it deserves, but I'd say this movie, or Sidney Prescott, you mentioned her as a very capable final girl, protagonist, and yeah, I don't think her name is brought up enough. I think primarily because one of my issues with the movie is, I find her just a smidge annoying, like just a smidge. Like, not to where it makes, like, a big deal, but I'm just kind of like, But this movie, though, is definitely held as an icon. You know, it's one of Wes Craven's best films, I think, that he's ever done. It was kind of a resurgence for him, and it was very meta. What makes Scream so special is you literally feel like you're watching a horror movie that's watching a horror movie. Does that make sense?
I've never heard it put in those terms, but you absolutely hit it on the head there. I mean, Kevin Williamson, I believe, wrote this script within a week. And it's such a simple idea, but it's so well executed that it becomes more complex than it may look on the surface. And that's something I try to do with a lot of the stuff I write. If you can tell a simple story really well and have great characters, I think that's a lot better than telling an overly complex story and not paying attention to your characters at all. Interstellar.
I mean, Interstellar is a hot mess. We all know this. But yeah, I totally agree. Scream does not have an overcomplicated plot, but what it does is, like you said, they do focus on the characters. Sydney does have a very, we get very established with her, like, with her backstory, on what happened and all that kind of stuff. And you do see the development, like, through the movie of her dealing with these, things going on, because, she's dealing with the things currently going on, but it's also, bringing up the, demons of her past as well. So this movie does very much focus on her, and I love how you did even mention it as a coming of age film, because I didn't really think about it, and it is. The Wes Craven, that's what he's good at kind of integrating all these other genres into his horror. I think I think that's when he's best, whenever he's not doing just straight horror. And New Nightmare was kind of his first foray into doing something meta, and that was kind of like a preview for Scream, And then
I love New Nightmare.
I actually haven't watched New Nightmare. It's on my list. I know it's on Netflix right now, so I do need to watch it at some point. But I want to rewatch all of the Nightmare on Elm Street, because I have not seen 3 or 4, and apparently 3 is everyone's favorite, and I have not seen that one. So
it's my favorite too. Like the first Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, is really fun, and it's got that sort of horror fantasy element, but some of the characters are a bit lackluster to me, except maybe Nancy. But in Dream Warriors, you've got great characters.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear that one's really good, and it's like I've skipped 3 and 4, but I've seen 5, which is like where Freddy is at like peak stand-up comedian. That is Dream Child. I actually like the 5th one, though. People don't like that one. I like it. But anyways, so Wes Craven already did kind of make a foray into this meta horror genre world. So what are some of your favorite parts in Scream, though? So because they have iconic characters, they have these iconic scenes. We mentioned the cold open of this movie it's phenomenal, with a very young Drew Barrymore. Absolutely fantastic. Like, what's one of your favorite scenes in this movie?
Oddly enough, it's also one of Ghostface's kills, but it's when the principal meets his end about halfway through the movie, because it also has a cameo by Wes Craven dressed in a Freddy Krueger sweater. And after this principal's just been like hounding some students for doing some really distasteful acts, they're running down the halls dressed in Ghostface masks after their friends have died, which is pretty messed up. And then it's so simple, you kind of don't see it coming, but the principal's just wandering around his office and closing all the doors. He's even trying on the Ghostface mask and looking at himself in the mirror, which is really fun. And then he shuts his door, and then Ghostface just comes in behind him and just stabs him to death. And the final shot of it is even kind of scary, because you see his dead eyes and it reflects Ghostface's mask. And that to me was just really scary.
And the way you described it was perfect, because I think this scene most encapsulates like Scream, like as a movie, because like you said, like it has a fun element to this kill, but then it's also like, this is after Mr. Hembry just like, he goes off on these kids. I fucking loved it, because it's like he was saying that like everything that the audience thinks but people don't usually put in the movies goes off on these kids. And like you said, you didn't expect it, kind of came out of nowhere. It was effective. And then that last shot, you see Ghostface in his eye. Like, I think that is just a very wonderful encapsulation of this movie. It's because that's what this movie does. It's super fun. And going with, the meta theme, one of my favorite scenes is, I forget how good Jamie Kennedy is in this movie. I give Jamie Kennedy lots of flack on Twitter because I've been like trying to start up a podcast beef with him, but he doesn't seem to be phased too much. But then I had to give it to him in this movie. I forget how good Jamie Kennedy is in this movie. And then we have the scene where everybody's watching Halloween and he's like doing his commentary on it, and they pauses the movie to explain the rules of horror movies and stuff. It's so funny. It's so great. I love the scene with Jamie Kennedy in the movie store too. That's a very good scene. Like, two of my favorite scenes are with fucking Jamie Kennedy in it, and that cracks me up. Him and Matthew Lillard, like, those are some 90s icons right there for you.
Oh, definitely. And even Matthew Lillard has some great reactions in both those scenes. Like when he says like, oh, it never in a horror movie say, I'll be right back. And then he's just like, oh yeah, I'm getting another beer. I'll be right back. Oh, and when I first saw Scream, I thought he was saying, I'll beer right back. Like he was doing some kind of pun.
Oh no, I thought it was just like perfect timing I was like, oh my God, he just hit that timing so perfectly with that joke. Like, it was absolutely perfect. Matthew Lillard is real obnoxious in this movie, but in the best way. I miss Matthew Lillard. I miss him in horror movies. I was talking with people on Twitter about 13 Ghosts a couple weeks ago. Very underrated horror film. By the way, the remake.
Check that one out.
I was talking about you've never seen it? There's one from like...
No, I haven't.
There's like one from like the 60s or 70s. I can't remember what year it was, but then there was a remake back in like 2002, I think. It has Matthew Lillard and Tony Shalhoub in it. It's a pretty solid horror movie. It's very underrated, I think. It's misunderstood. Just like Scream kind of is at times, because like, it is hard sometimes to classify it in a genre. Because like, okay, is this a straight up slasher movie? Is this, a high school horror movie, like, and it has all these different flavors to it. It does have, it has all Wes Craven stuff in it, but then he also kind of pays homage to like other horror directors throughout this movie as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can see a lot of influence in there, like John Carpenter, I think, is a big influence on this. Like when you see a thing of Ghostface kind of, it's in the bathroom scene where you just see his boots come down and then the robe comes down. That was very John Carpenter-y.
That and the way that the score of this movie Scream has a fantastic score to it, and I think that's the biggest Carpenter influence I saw, is the way he integrated the score into the movie. And there's a super funny line in when these two girls are talking about horror stuff going on, or no, it was her best friend. I forget what her name is.
Tatum Riley.
Yeah, she was talking about something. She goes, yeah, it's something like in a Wes Carpenter movie, and it made me laugh because it was like so little, and I was like, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it's like a Jordan Wan film.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, but it was super funny. But yeah, Wes Craven, he does pay homage to all these different styles in it. So of course, when you talk about Scream. And see, I've only seen, like, this is only like the third time that I've like watched Scream all the way through, and I hadn't watched it in like a really long time. I know more things about Scream from Scary Movie than I do from actually watching Scream, because rewatching this today really made me realize like how good of a job Scary Movie did paying homage to this movie. Like, oh my goodness, they did such a good job with it. Like, it's almost like frame for frame sometimes, like the way that they recreated, the moments in Scream and stuff. So that was really fun to watch that. So we got to talk about, because people seem to be kind of split on the final scene, or not like the final scene, but like when Billy and Matthew Lillard's character are explaining their whole plot and everything going on. How do you feel about the scene? Because I know how I feel about it, but I know it seems to be kind of split with people.
I think you got to look back at the time with that, because I can see why a lot of people think that about the scene, but teen killings were usually pretty popular, and Scream was even criticized for kind of glamorizing it, which I don't agree with at all. It's the same people who are saying 13 Reasons Why is glamorizing suicide. Like, did you watch the fucking show? And the way that they do this final scene where Billy Loomis reveals himself as a killer, Stu, he's Stu's there for the lols. He doesn't really care about anything. He's just peer pressured into it. But they say something where it's like, movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. And that kind of encompasses how insane this movie is. But it goes that far. And like I said before, this is not a kind of a killer with a plan. This is a guy who could live on your street and is just insane. Even though Billy does have a legitimate reason for wanting to be a killer, Stu doesn't really. He's just there for the lols.
Yeah, and I love the scene because, one, Matthew Lillard is still hilarious in this scene. It's so good. But yeah, no, I love that line. It's, one of the most iconic lines of this movie for sure. And I think that's where Scream is ultimately the most meta, is because it's like, they're showing what society would be like, in this kind of event, but they're also doing it at this heightened level. So I think that's why people would say it's like glamorizing, doing my podcast air quotes because you can't see them, glamorizing teen shootings. And yes, thank you. Especially people have been saying that about 13 Reasons Why. The people have been frustrating me when talking about that show because, I covered it for TV at my brain and I absolutely loved it. But yeah, I totally get what you mean. But I love this final scene. I love the way that I love Billy's line delivery, like throughout the entire movie. Like he just says everything in the most perfectly creepy ways. And then you got Matthew Lillard over here. So it's like after he's already been stabbed a few times and Billy's like trying to like tell Stu to like do something. And Stu's just like, I can't. I'm a little bit woozy. I think I'm dying. He's like, you stabbed me too many times.
You hit me with the phone, dick.
Like he was killing me. I was cracking up because it's like it was such a good juxtaposition to Billy. Because like you said, like Billy has his reasons and he's like kind of crazy and he like studies these movies, he's been making all these like movie references the whole movie. And then, yeah, like you said, Stu is literally there just because and just for the lulz. He's there for the gigs, but now he's been stabbed 3 times and is still managing to crack some jokes. Stu.
I do like Stu's death though.
Huh?
Stu's death is incredible.
Oh, yeah. All the fake outs in the final couple scenes are, it would kind of get frustrating, but at the same time, knowing that this movie, how aware of itself it was, I felt like that was like on purpose. It's like, first you think Stu's dead, he's not dead, now he's dead. And then the reporter, you think she's dead, she's not dead. And then you think she's dead, oh yeah, she's not dead either. So like you literally get faked out in these last few scenes like 5 different times. And I think I think it's on purpose though, because, this is kind of playing on, that's another kind of cliche that we missed is like, people you think are dead or, they think the killer's dead and they're actually not, so I think that was kind of a play on that. So Scream is a fantastic movie. Cause I haven't watched this in a while, I've never actually rated it. My only weakness is it does get a little bit too campy at times, especially with the reporter and David Arquette. Though they're a little bit too campy for me at times. And like I said, Cindy is just like a smidge annoying, like a smidge. But I think it definitely still holds up though. Has a fantastic cast. I'd give it because like I said, I've had a really solid day today. But I'm gonna give this one an 8.4 is where I'm landing with it.
I think that's fair. I mean, where I'm going with this. Scream's my favorite horror movie of all time, so I got to give it a perfect score. But I can see where you're coming from with the whole Sydney thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, but this movie definitely, obviously, like inspired you as well, and kind of left an imprint on you. So definitely not faulting you for holding it at a perfect score. And then, we don't talk my movie too much usually on the podcast, so we'll just kind of breeze through it a bit because Cabin in the Woods deserves a whole podcast itself.
It does.
So Cabin in the Woods is another meta horror movie. It's the film that I chose to compare it with Scream, and it does get a lot of Scream comparisons. Whenever it came out, people did draw a lot of comparisons to it, and Joss Whedon, even, or it is Joss Whedon, right?
Joss Whedon wrote it. Drew Goddard directed it.
There we go. Yeah, Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard. But yeah, Joss Whedon even said that, like, you know, he definitely made references and had inspiration from Scream in this movie. But I think Cabin in the Woods has one of the best premises, like, ever. And I went into this movie whenever I watched it for the first time, had no clue what it was, like, actually about. Like, I thought it was a straight up, like, you know, the classic Cabin in the Woods horror movie. And then once I realized, like, what was actually going on, I was like, this is fucking amazing. Like, this is I'd say it's in my top 50. I can't tell you exactly where it's at, but it's up there for me, like, of movies all time. So you got Chris Hemsworth in one of his most underrated performances. I think he plays the over-the-top stupid jock so fantastically. So for those of you who don't know, Cabin in the Woods, you got 5 kids. They are all the, like, on the nose stereotypes in horror movies. You got the stoner, you got the virgin, you got the jock, you got the pretty girl, and then what was the other guy? I guess the smart guy. What was the black guy? Was he the black guy? Because I think that's what he should have been.
You're fuzzing up a bit on your mic.
It'll fuzz up on yours, but it won't on my end. Don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, I think you've got Jock, the stoner, the insecure girl, and the kind of like the hot girl. I can't really remember too much what the other guy was like, but
like I said, I'm pretty sure he was unspoken. He was the black guy. But I love this movie so much. So they go out to the Cabin in the Woods and they find all these things. Meanwhile, we keep getting cuts to this control room, and it's these people are controlling the scenario because there is some cult and they have to offer up these sacrifices in a very specific way to appease these monster demons or whatever. And so they're pulling all these strings behind the scenes, and we're watching it play out. So it's like as if we were watching Scream and there was somebody, like, you know, making people do the wrong decisions and stuff like that, which I thought was super, super interesting. Like, we've never seen a movie like that. What are your, like, overall thoughts on Cabin in the Woods?
Like you, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I expected it just to be like a sort of an Evil Dead kind of fun spin-off, but when you see that thing, like, oh, they're taking bets on it and they're taking the cliches and they're making them a fun part of the movie, like, that is how you work cliches into a story. If you can find a new way to twist it, or like a new fun way, maybe even to satirize it, then go ahead and do that. And there's one point in Cabin in the Woods that I do love, besides the end scene, which is like just go wacky balls insane. It's when they get to the cabin and they're just like looking in the water, and Chris Hemsworth is like, hey, what's that in the water? It looks like my girlfriend. And then he tosses his girlfriend in the water. Like, that's the kind of thing I remember doing when I went camping with my own friends. And it's very reminiscent of, it tells you a lot about those characters.
Yeah, it's super funny. Yeah, Cabin in the Woods is actually hilarious. It has some fantastic dialogue in there. The stoner especially has some of the best dialogue, like, ever. And, like, somebody, like, offered up a, like, stupid idea, and he was just like, okay, because that makes sense why. And, like, he says things like that because, like, he's literally, like, the audience in the movie. But you mentioned, you know, when they're taking bets and stuff, that's one of my favorite scenes, and you, like, see all the stuff that's written on the board, and I have it pulled up now, but he was like, she was like, yes, we got it. And he was like, no, you chose zombies. He's like, the winner was zombie redneck torture family. He's like, completely different. He's like, completely different cast.
Yeah, it's like the difference between Texas Chainsaw and Hills Have Eyes.
Yes, exactly. And there's like, and you look at this board, and unicorn is on this board, and then you see it, and then it's like later on when we have the, you know, crazy scene and all the monsters are unleashed, there's literally a unicorn there that stabs somebody in the heart.
I want to see a horror movie with a unicorn now. Jordan Peele, make that your next project.
Right? Because, like, everybody, I remember, like, that's such a great callback, or that's like a perfect of setup and execution. You know, like, you see that in the board, and I remember, like, anytime somebody talks about it, they're like, I saw a unicorn. Why was that on there? And then later on, you get the payoff. Fantastic. But yeah, Cabin in the Woods. It's balls to the wall fun for for real. I think it's super fun, super funny. Is it a little bit too on the nose at times? Maybe, but I also don't give a shit. Because I love this movie so much, so much. And I think it would definitely, more or less inspire me on my writing style, kind of the way Scream did it for you. Because like I said, I absolutely love the dialogue in this film because it's like, it makes more sense. It's like people are actually saying things that people would say in these situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I read a lot of stories where people aren't great at dialogue, and it comes off as like, when you were watching maybe a high school play and these kids are reading Shakespeare and they're just completely butchering it. Like, that's the kind of feel I get from when I have bad dialogue. But good dialogue is kind of simple. I mean, you just need to study people like
natural,
Tarantino and things like that.
Yeah. Or one script that I really give a lot of credit for their dialogue is Superbad. So I didn't know, like, Seth Rogen did start writing that movie when he was 16. So that's why it feels so genuine, and like they actually talk how high schoolers would talk because he was writing that movie in high school. So it's like that's when the best dialogue is. So I respect the script by Joss Whedon on Cabin in the Woods for one, and then Drew Goddard directed this fantastically. It's shot really well. It has really good practical effects, all the makeup on the monsters, but it also has really good CGI on some of the monsters as well. I think it's fantastic, and I think it didn't perform as well and people didn't know about it as much because, it was kind of marketed as like, hey, look, it's another teenage Cabin in the Woods movie. So I think a lot of people skipped it, but now it's kind of gained that cult following. And that's something that these two movies both share in common as well. Scream definitely has a very, very devoted cult following as well.
I mean, I watch it every Halloween, and Cabin in the Woods did for horror what I think Get Out also kind of did for horror this year. Like, it got people talking about a horror movie, and that's usually very rare. Like, usually people they see a horror film, they're like, yeah, it was fun. But when you have things like Cabin in the Woods or Scream or Get Out, these ones that really change the game, it's got to be celebrated. And even Split did that this year also.
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree, and I do think, like, Cabin in the Woods is one of those movies, like, even 10 years from now, like, I mean, it's been out for about 5 years, or 4 years, 5 or 4 years, it came out in 2012, so, I mean, it has been out for a minute, but at the same time, I feel like 10 years from now, it's going to be even more appreciated for what it was, because, like you said, I think it is definitely one of those game changers, and not really brought up as much, when people do talk about game-changing horror movies, but I think in time it will. Especially with the Scream comparisons and such.
There's one more thing I should bring up with Cabin in the Woods. Well, it's two things, actually. It takes two cliches and kind of turns them on their head. And that's when they get to the cabin and the guy sees the girl changing through a two-way mirror. Rather than just having him stay there and stare, he actually goes and tells their friends. And then there's the other one where they dare the girl to make out with the wolf. And for that whole scene, you're just thinking, is that wolf going to become alive? Is this going to be like an Evil Dead scenario? And nothing like that happens, but the tension in the scene is done so freaking well.
That is so true. And I love that scene so much because it's just like, who came up with this? Like, I mean, we know who came up with it, but like, how did he come up with this? Like, it's such a weird scene, but like you said, it does feel tense as you're also watching something ridiculous go on. Like, she's making out this stuffed wolf head, and yeah, just like you said, you're expecting something to happen, you're waiting for it, and in a typical horror movie, something would have, or we would have gotten a false jump scare or something like that, and it didn't even try to do that with you. It just gave you this nice tense scene, and it was but it's also very ridiculous.
If Edgar Wright ever did like a horror movie with his style, I've always said he should make fun of jump scares by having people actually jump when they get scared.
That would be really funny. Yeah, I mean, he did Shaun of the Dead, but I would like to see Edgar Wright even like go even more into horror. Like, we got Baby Driver coming, so he's got his action fix. So maybe he will go back to a more horror feel to one of his next movies. But yeah, so those two movies, you can definitely compare them very well, but both of them, what they did for meta horror movies, turning classic horror things on their heads, taking these cliches and tropes and using them in positive, effective ways. These are perfect examples of, like I said, like when people say a movie is cliche predictable, those are two of the laziest film critiques that you can ever say, because just like I said, if you use a cliche properly, if you execute it well, then it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People often forget that a film can be simple, but what can make it unique is the characters. Like, I was just watching Raimi's Spider-Man today. It's a pretty simple plot, but the characters make it work.
Yeah. And Sam Raimi, another person that, has dipped his toes in some very horror films and, kind of comes full circle because, Cabin in the Woods is very heavily inspired by The Evil Dead, I'd say. But
definitely.
Two fantastic horror movies. I've gotten to watch some really good horror movies lately, and that's literally all I've been doing, especially, been the past 3 weeks of all horror things. So, I can never get enough of them. So, to go ahead and close out the show, of course, we have Story Time, our very last segment. And since we're talking meta horror movies, and we are both kind of, creative writers and storytellers and stuff, so I'm sure we both have very good stories for this, is a time that you felt like you were in a horror movie.
Right. Well, I don't know if you know this about me, but I grew up in Dubai, which is pretty infamous for having Tom Cruise climb up one of our buildings. And I had a group of friends who are very dear to me, and I still keep in touch with them now. One of them was called Frederick Betting, but his nickname was always Satan. And the story of how he got this nickname is something that my friends love telling people. Like, what happened was, we're at this party at my buddy Gio's house, and Frederick gets a little bit too drunk, like he's going crazy. And this is a Danish guy. He's just like, he's putting chairs on tables, sitting on the chair, and everyone's just like, okay, we'll leave this guy be, because no one really knew him at the time. And then that night, we're all in like at 3 a.m. just sleeping in the house, and we realized that we forgot about Frederick. And in the middle of nowhere, you hear this banging on the window, and because he's got the Danish accent, he's like, "Yeah, let me in, let me in, let me in." And then my friend just turned to me and was like, "Oh my God, it's Satan." And since then, his parents call him Satan. His teachers call him Satan. Everyone calls him Satan. He might as well change that to his name on Facebook. We all still call him Satan, but we love him. If he's listening to this show, buddy, there you go. You got your shout out.
That's fantastic. I actually was called Satan often throughout high school, but not for that reason, though. Nothing of that crazy sort. But that seems very appropriate and definitely sounds like something out of a horror movie for sure. All right.
Do you have one?
Yes, I do. I have so many different stories, and I can't remember if... Oh, no, I can't tell the story because I have already told the story. Oh, man, I was going to tell... There was a story, if you guys have not listened to the earlier episodes of Deezus Take the Reel. I believe it was episode 3 with Tess. I had an episode where I talked about this late night encounter I had with a Boogan at my work, but I definitely did tell that story, unfortunately. So, I will go with another story. So, Hold on one sec, actually, because that was like my story this whole time, and now I gotta come up with a backup one. All right, so I got my story. Okay, this might be a cop-out answer because it is a dream, but there is a counterpoint, like there is an actual story with it as well. Do you remember a show? It was a show that used to come on ABC Family back in like the early 2000s. It was kind of a Buffy wannabe, but it was a werewolf on campus. Do you remember that show?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Big Wolf on Campus or something like that. That's what it was. But basically, you had this kid who was a werewolf, and he was like going through high school and like trying to like solve, supernatural crimes that were going around in his town. And one of the episodes, oddly enough, is a episode that's very meta because they were watching a horror movie, and the slasher in the horror movie came to life. And I remember this was when I was like 6, like I was super young, and I remember watching that show, and it was like the scariest episode of that show because it's a comedy, more than it's horror related. But this episode was terrifying. I remember watching it when I was a kid, and like it freaked me the hell out. And the slasher in the show was super fucking creepy. So I had a dream that night after I'd watched that episode. So I had this dream that I'm being chased on the building by this slasher, and he has like a needle that he's like trying to inject me with. And he's chasing me, and he's like chasing me through the building, and I did like, any horror movie person would do, would go to the top of a building because you're not very safe up there either. But I made it all the way up to the top of this building, and then he's standing there with the needle, and then he comes at me, and then I jump off the building, and it was one of those things that, like, whenever I jump off the building, at the time, I had bunk beds in my room, and I slept on the top bunk that night, so I literally woke up on the floor after I had, in my dream, jumped off the roof. It was creepy as hell. Like, I was terrified. I like woke up, I was like sweating like crazy, and I was still like shaking and stuff. It was creepy as all get out.
Yeah, I know how that feels. I've often had dreams where I'm falling, and then I'll wake up, and it's just like your heart's almost jumping out of your chest.
Yeah, no, it was fucking terrifying. But like, it was like one of those dreams, like, because like I said, this happened whenever I was like 6, and I can like still remember the dream like very vividly. So like it was like one of those dreams that like felt super real, and then the effect of me rolling off the top bunk, I suppose, versus jumping in the dream definitely felt very scary movie-esque.
Oh yeah, what's up?
Well, there you go, guys. 2 very crazy stories. If you ever feel like you've been in a horror movie, tweet them at me and let us know anytime that you felt like you were in a scary movie. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode of Deezus Take the Reel. Nolan Dean, thank you so much. This was so much fun getting to talk these awesome horror movies with you. Where can the good people find you?
You can find me at Nolan Dean 27 on Twitter, and go to my channel, Nolan Dean, to see my show Movies and Me. A few weeks ago, your boy Deezus was on there talking The Nightmare Before Christmas, and that was a really fun episode because I mistaken the director Henry Selick for Tom Selleck, and then we had a good laugh about Jack Skellington having a mustache. And also look out for my horror show Midnight Myths coming soon. I wanted to do a thing where it's like I'm bringing back sort of Twilight Zone-esque kind of stories, kind of like what Black Mirror is doing, but I'm doing it in an audio style, and the intro for that's up now. I don't know if the episodes will be out, but there's 6 of the creepiest horror stories that I've ever written. And you can always tweet me at NolanDean27 and discuss horror or storytelling or anything like that. And I'm going to be posting about the Moonflower Child as well, so look out for that. And dude, thanks so much for having me on here. This was a total blast.
Yeah, of course, man. We had so much fun recording Movies and Me. That was definitely a very fun recording because obviously everybody knows I can talk Nightmare Before Christmas for days, literally. Yeah, that was so much fun, guys. And yeah, definitely make sure you check out Nolan Dean on Twitter because, that's where we have most of our movie conversations as well. And as always, find me on Twitter at Deezus12. On the podcast Twitter is at Deezus TT Reel, so make sure you follow both of those. I've also been doing more of my live tweet reviews. A couple weeks ago I did my one for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram so you can get those as well. And Instagram, of course, at Deezus.12. You can see all my awesome pictures that I got to take at Overlook Film Festival because it was fucking amazing. So make sure you guys are following me on both Twitter accounts. Follow the show, retweet it, subscribe, tell your homies about it, all that good shit, so that way more people can listen to the show. But that'll go ahead and do it for us, guys. Peace out, motherfuckers. Thank you so much for listening to Deezus Take the Reel, the dopest movie talk show on the internet. You can find me every Tuesday on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Play Music, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. If you like what you're listening to, write a 5-star iTunes review, and I'll read it on the Deez and T Money Show, which is every other Friday. And of course, spread this with ya homies. Last but not least, stay till the end for a little pre-recording something. Peace out, motherfuckers.
Since we're talking screaming, a lot of people, me and my friend had a debate who was scarier, Ghostface or Leatherface.
Leatherface, because I have a recording after this later for this week's episode, and we're talking underrated slashers, and he picked Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's why I watched it, and Leatherface does not get enough credit. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to talk about it, because Leatherface is so complex, and but his design too is great. I don't know.
He is so terrifying.
He's terrifying.